Tebow going on his own. He gets the try.
The Red 78.
We're both Munster people.
Carberry gets over the line. Try from Munster.
Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
Hello and welcome along. I'm Alan Quinlan and you're listening to episode 61 of the Red 78 here on the Rugby channel. And with me as always is my partner in crime, Niamh Briggs. How are you, Niamh? And how was your weekend? Spurs lost again. They've given Liverpool a bit of a lifeline at the top four. And obviously for any United fans watching this, it was a freak show on Sunday. Very enjoyable one, I must say now, given the way poor old Liverpool were going, my team. But anyway, I enjoyed Sunday.
You must have been buzzing.
I enjoyed Sunday, yeah. Well, I tell you, I looked at the Tottenham Wolves game and the results Saturday night, and I was surprised. Tottenham are up and down. But anyway, from a rugby point of view, how was your weekend? Were you training, matches?
Yeah, it was good. It was busy. We had our first Irish camp this weekend. So it was the Irish-based players and the wider squad. So it was great to touch base. Lots of new girls and stuff that I wouldn't have encountered before. So it was brilliant. Really enjoyed that. And then Saturday evening, ducked away from Abbottstown over to Blackrock because we were playing Blackrock in the AIL Cup and we got a good win there. So yeah, it was a good weekend. Busy, but a good weekend rugby-wise.
Oh, very good. You mentioned that you were in camp. Was that your first camp this weekend?
Yeah, our first camp. So we go back in again now on Sunday. Yeah. So
and you play in 3 weeks, on the 25th, your first game against.
Yeah, it's Wales. So it follows the same.
You're away to Wales.
Okay. Park, yeah.
Before I read out the tweets and the performance on Friday night, Munster's win against the Scarlets 49-42, which is a bit of a crazy game itself. I put out a tweet yesterday just to try and get some engagement from the fans. There's one message that kind of jumped out at me here from Conor McNamara, and it has to be for you because it can't be for me, really. Conor wanted to know thoughts on so few Munster women making the first combined provinces and now the Six Nations squad, despite Munster being back-to-back champs. Before you answer, this is a difficult situation. And sometimes I look at the likes of Paul O'Connell, who's obviously a diehard Munster man all his life, Irish man as well, of course, but he was getting a little bit of this at the start of his tenure with Ireland as well, that there was so few Munster men there. It's a little bit different. Munster won the Interpros. I can understand it's a difficult decision and you can't give a lot away on this, but it is a question to say, you know, there's 32 girl squad and there's 6 Munster ladies in it. How do you answer that question for Conor?
Yeah, look, obviously people are perfectly entitled to their opinions and I completely understand where that's I get a tweet about that at least once a week, by the way, since the end of the Interpros. And I think we've just got to look at the bigger picture. So club scene in Dublin is really, really strong. I don't know if anybody knows the AIL within women's rugby, there's a big imbalance in relation to how the club game is going at the moment, and the Dublin clubs are very strong, and we're kind of hanging on by our fingernails in terms of making sure we're in that top 4, and we've done incredibly well this year from a Bows perspective. From a Munster perspective, I do get it, but I think if people just look at the age profile of all the squads, that Munster squad were really, really young, so they have opportunities in the summer in terms of an under 18 and under 23 international or get-togethers, and I'd imagine, and I would be very surprised if there's not a big bulk of them that are in that. So they're definitely on the path, and I know for a fact that they're in Greg and John's vision and what we're trying to do. But it's very difficult. The women's game is in a real state of flux at the moment because obviously we've got contracted players now, but also from a global stage, we've got a Six Nations that becomes very important because there's a tournament in the autumn called Global XV. In order for you to qualify for that and into the top tiers of that, you have to place in Six Nations. So tier 1 goes with the top 3, tier 2 is 4 and 5, and tier 3 is the 6th place in Six Nations. So obviously you want to be in the top tier 1 because you get better quality games, you're playing against better players, and you're then improving all the time. So there's an element too that we've got to go with a lot of experience as well. So I get people's frustrations, but I fully believe that from a coaching point of view, a club and a province, if we continue to do what we're doing and how we're developing players and what the likes of Ken and Rosemary, Willie are doing at underage level, then that number will increase over the next couple of years. So we just got to keep our heads down and keep working.
Would any of the girls be looking for feedback, or would you kind of regularly talk to them and say, look, you didn't make
hugely.
this squad, but what you've done so far, and even in Interpros, has been brilliant. We're watching you closely. We do an Andy Farlow You Watching piece. We might do that for the ladies as well. And obviously, Greg McWilliams, the head coach, and Dennis Fogarty is involved with you full time now, which is brilliant to have his experience.
And John McKee and Greg and John are full time, so they're the ones that are ultimately, leading this program. It's like last weekend was really good, a really enjoyable camp, and I just think 100%. We've a couple of girls in that wider squad from Munster. There's people probably don't really know about in terms of they're young, so they've got valuable experience now. They're in and around the girls all the time. They're training with them and stuff like that. So there's a lot of work to do from a Munster's perspective in terms of we did drop the ball from a club and provincial, over the last few years in terms of continuously evolving and getting players to be at that level. But I think over the last 12, 18 months, the work that the lads are doing, as I said, underage, the work that we're trying to do in terms of senior and down into filtered into the clubs. And I'd like to think that over the next 12, 18 months, that number changes.
Yeah, we must try and get Greg on at some stage. He probably not during the Six Nations, but maybe after, unless he wants to. I know he listens to the pod here because he's he's listening carefully to see what you say as well. What one of his selectors say and coaches. So we will get him on, and he can maybe give us a bit of a report after the Six Nations and let people know, because part and parcel of obviously the structural improvements that everyone was crying out for and that are starting to happen. You're seeing lots of positive changes around the women's game now, but also the media part of the exposure that these girls get as regards, articles in the papers, coverage on TV, all that kind of stuff is really important. So I know Greg is pretty open to, and he's been very honest in his appraisal of his vision for the future and stuff. So hopefully we can get him on at some stage about that. Okay, that was a tricky question, but it's kind of it's a catch-22. It's a tough one, but I'm sure you are fighting the corner for the Munster girls as well. But maybe a bit of experience is played out in this squad. Regarding the Munster game last Friday night, it seems like a while back and a bit of a freakish kind of a scenario. I'm talking about the Liverpool United one as well there at the start, but this game was kind of crazy. Munster won 49-42. They're 35-7 up at half time, playing brilliant rugby. And then you have the Scarlets' response in the second half. I think it's a bit disingenuous to say that Munster were really poor and that Scarlets, that's what allowed Scarlets back into the game. I think, Scarlets have obviously had a really disappointing start to their season. Their first 10 games, they'd only 1 win, 1 draw, 8 losses. The last 4 before Friday night, they'd won 4 games. But there's still a lot of good attacking players in their team, and that's the way they play. So we'll get more into the game in a minute. But what are the fans saying? I put a tweet out yesterday asking them what their thoughts were. Yeah,
before we jump into that Munster game, I was going to we had a couple on YouTube, if that's okay. And one from Brian Quigley. We were speaking last week about Tyke Byrne being missing and a like for like. He thinks the closest player to Tyke Byrne's playing style is Gavin Coombs. James Ryan started at the left second row with Ian Henderson, but when Ryan Baird went on, James Ryan moved to right second row and wasn't as noticeable around the pitch. Should Gavin Coombs start at the right second row for Ireland, as he has been finishing matches there for Munster? That's one for you, Quinny.
Yeah, that's a tough question. He is a back rower, though. I think he's more of a back rower. I think Tyke Byrne obviously has the ability to, Tyke Byrne obviously plays in the back row a fair bit as well. And when he was with Scarlets, he was outstanding for them, mostly playing as a back rower. It's an option, yeah. And it could be an option going forward. I'm not sure it's going to happen now or should happen now. But obviously, if you have someone of his playing ability and his ball carrying ability and power, I think, yes, of course, it could be an option. But Is he the same line-out operator and presence as Tig? Probably not. But certainly, as if you want to try and get him on the field and you want to keep really athletic, powerful ball carriers in your pack, depending on what way you're playing and what way games are going, yes, of course, he would be an option there.
Yeah, very interesting. Ken Chedwell has also emailed in. He's a Longford man living in New York, and he listens every week and loves the podcast. He's curious to hear our thoughts on the potential future of Jack Crowley. I, among others, rate him highly, and I feel like he might be slightly unlucky not to have featured more in the Six Nations so far, given the run he had in the autumn series. I would have liked if he had been given more time against Italy. The 2 minutes I saw of him that game, he looked exciting as he always does. I remember Andy Farrell talking some months back about investing time in Crowley, but it hasn't seemed to have happened for him yet. He played well Friday night also and helped set up a try. In terms of his place at Munster, where do you guys see him settling? Will it be himself and Carberry battling for 10 jersey? You have to imagine that a young, exciting player like him needs games for him to develop. Is there room for him and Carberry at Munster at the moment? I also have one quick question about the Irish team that crossed my mind. There seems to be a big reliance on Van der Fleer and Darius, rightly so. Lately, they have a lot of minutes on the clock this year. If one or both get injured, Baird is in the second row and O'Mahony is at 6. Do we have the players on the bench or in reserve that can realistically be on par with their world-class performances week in, week out? Coombs comes to mind if he gets the opportunity. Loaded there.
Yeah, okay. There's a good few questions in there. The first one, Jack Crowley and Joey Carberry. Do they both have a role in Munster? Absolutely. I think the situation for Joey Carberry now is there's not as much emphasis and pressure at actually him playing as a full back. Of course he can play as a full back. I actually thought on Friday night that both of them would start the game. Munster started Patrick Campbell at full back. You need quality. Ben Healy is leaving. You know, if they were to lose a Joey Carberry or he was to move on, and you know something happened, every team needs a little bit of depth, particularly in those pivotal positions at out half. Tight head prop come to mind. So I think of course there's a role for both of them. It's very early days. I think Jack Crowley, yes, I agree a sense that he might have got more game time and have maybe involvement, a bit more involvement. But look, the reality is Ross Byrne kind of jumped ahead of him and took his chance and did really well coming off the bench against France as well. So
I would have liked to have seen him got more game time against Italy, to be fair.
Yeah, I think the time.
Yeah.
But I think the way the match played out then as well, you know, it doesn't help. And I've been in that position myself when you're on the bench and you end up being in a tough situation where the game is still in the balance. So and it's
I
not
also
about.
think though, sorry for interrupting there. I also think from a point of view of the Munster situation, like Munster need to get to a place like a Leinster where they have world class or international class in 2 or 3 depth chart, you know, in terms of across all positions, so that it breeds competition within the squad. It makes everybody play better. It makes everybody play on edge. For a long time, I felt that Munster had players that knew no matter how well or how poor they played, they were going to be starting next week. And I just think that that's going now. That's kind of that environment that Graham Rowntree is creating with the lads is really good. They put the team up at the end of the week on whoever's trained well and whoever's playing well, and it's that competition that will make the squad better. It's not just Joey Carberry, Crowley. That needs to be across the board.
Yeah, of course, everybody would love that. Every team playing across Europe wants that depth chart, and you know, Leinster have a lot of players that are, you know, playing consistently well, and they've, you know, 19. I think they've the run of matches they've won this year has just been phenomenal. And even going to Edinburgh at the weekend, Edinburgh had a few internationals back, tough place to go, and they produced the goods again. They've lots of quality underneath the perceived first team, so that's well documented. Of course, Munster want to try and get to that position and get more depth. It's hard to get every position covered, but it's a gradual process. And look, they're in that transitional period, and I think that is the case for Jack Crowley. and Joey Carberry that this whole thing of even the two of them playing together, and they've done that a couple of times this season. It's still quite early, and they're really important players for Munster. Van der Fleer and Doris, can we replace them if they weren't playing? Well, that if you took two of the best players out of any team in any sport, it's hard to get the same level. So it's just about bringing other young players through as well, and other options. I'm sure if they were injured, other players would come through, and we've seen that with some other injuries that Ireland have had. Particularly, the highlighted one is Finlay Bealham. The way he's come through, we didn't think we could cope without Tadhg Furlong, and Bealham has done a fantastic job. It's a shame he's injured again. So hard players to play. Let's move on to the other tweets. You've loads of messages about the match. They're all very similar about the carnage of the second half, really. Positives in the first half, carnage in the second half.
Keane McGivney, impressive attack and serious cohesion with the likes of Frisch, Fecteau and Shane Daly to the fore. Poor in the second half. Here's hoping they can play like the first half in Glasgow. Great to see RG back too. Helena Close, high octane first half, but they paid the price in the second. Does it always have to be heart attack stuff at Munster or worn out from it? John Toohey, job done at half time. The Munster lads pressed the standby button in the dressing room while the Scarlet coaches were frantically attaching jump leads to their players to find out if they were alive and could they play in the second half. Great win and game past the defib. I think lots of them were talking about that. Tom Lundergan, glad we got the job done in the first half. Credit to Scarlets, all that's going on and turned up in the second half. It's a massive Six Nations test this week. Must win for Ireland and Scotland. It won't be easy. Triple Crown Championship and Grand Slam all to play for in our own final home game against England. James Moriarty inevitably ran out of juice after what I can only imagine was a tough week for all. Also, injuries during the game didn't help, but credit to Scarlets for how they responded. Munster are a team transformed now since out of Larkham's guidance. Good Paul T. Good second half, playing a nice brand of rugby. Good start, playing a nice brand of rugby. Second half, no flow. We got the expected Scarlets backlash. Shane Daly and Calvin Nash improving every game. Benefited most with Munster's new brand of game. Just wanted to see RG most of all. Better to be chased as the ones chasing the lead. Christopher Murphy, either Scarlets figured out Munster's defence and proceeded to shred them, or Munster switched off because they thought it was done and dusted. Hopefully it was Munster switching off, because if not, that's a load of game tape for opponents to study and look for ways to pick Munster apart. Chris Tobin, outstanding first half, complacency set in second half. It's understandable. Injuries upset the whole team. Scarlets are a decent side. 6-2 split in the bench nearly caught us. Hopefully those lads have learned how to close out a game. Sometimes kicking it or keeping it tight is okay. And just in relation to the game this weekend, John Toohey, Farrell as a mantra, the best we can be. If we bring that on Sunday, Ireland will win by 14 points plus. The Scots have not beaten a decent team in the Six Nations. They also bring a knife to a gunfight. We have too many weapons in our arsenal. It should be a cracker. That's literally madness is how we described the Scarlets match, but great entertainment. Fantastic to see RG back with a hurn in a dog bow, almost there as well. So lots of people are very happy to see RG back. A fella called Phil Quinlan said it was superb to see Cuchulainn back. That's how he called RG, which I thought was very good. And obviously, look, it was great to see him back. He's back now, and it's just about being patient and getting him game time. So it's great.
Okay, it was a very the big positive here for me is it's a bonus point win. We spoke a lot about these three home games, Ospreys, Scarlets and Glasgow's to come in 3 weeks. The big positive is 5 points on the board, bonus point win. Munster putting themselves in a really good position in the table, giving themselves a real shot at being in that playoffs. They're still fifth on 47 points, 2 points behind Glasgow. So beating Glasgow in a few weeks could put them into the top four. And we know what's happening after that. South Africa is going to be very difficult. So the big positive is the bonus point win. And of course, lots of the tweeters there and fans are mentioning RG Snyman. Just very quickly on that, I felt that a sense of relief and a bit of nervousness watching the game. I was commentating on the game, that he just get through it. It's one of those ones you just need to get through. But given, he's come back before and the second injury he had, I thought about myself coming on off the bench and trying to get back for Heineken Cup final in 2006. And the biggest fear of all is just getting the gear on, doing the warm up, getting out on the pitch and getting off the pitch and kind of, being able to be in that dressing room afterwards, knowing psychologically you've got through this. You mightn't have been tested or hit in the knee or had to do a huge amount. And I've openly stated, my cameo in the Heineken Cup final, 4 minutes in 2006 was I didn't touch the ball, I didn't make a tackle, I just ran around in circles. And obviously I'd come back a couple of in previous weeks and played a few games off the bench for Shannon and Munster twice, and then got onto the final. So I just thought about that I just thought he looked like someone who really just needed to get through this 20 minutes and get off the field. It wasn't about what he did, because he made a few tackles, one carry, and a sense of relief. But it's a massive positive that he was out there. The other positives are obviously the attack. So what did Munster do well in that first half to be leading 35-7?
Oh, it's their ability to move the ball in small spaces. So you're constantly changing the point of attack. So you're almost dictating the tackle, if that makes any sense. So you're running into space. It's like soft shoulders, arms tackles, as opposed to body in front where you're going to get absolutely smashed. And I think they've done that so well over the last period of months. And I just think it's just constantly moving that point. And I think they look for edges very, very well, but it's what they do when they come back from that edge. I've noticed generally if you come back off an edge, you'll see big carries into that really tight defence. Now they're kind of screening that out the back to the 10, and it's just moving. It's moving defences around the park all the time. And I just thought it was that ability to move the ball in those really tight spaces that allows them then to have front door and out the back options. Defenders have to kind of check their run a small bit, and they're finding these small little gaps, and then just all you need is that small gap, and then the next phase after you're able to put that away. And what I love most about this attack over the last while is the acceleration onto the ball. So they actually are accelerating onto the ball once they have it in their hands, and none other than the back three players. And I just thought it was really, really good.
Okay, that was the first half. They conceded one try, which I think they probably would look back on it and be a bit frustrated when they got a turnover and the touch was missed, and it allowed the Scarlets to come back and score that try in the first half from Roberts, their winger. Second half, what happened? 23 missed tackles throughout the game, and it was a little bit. And as I said at the start, you don't want to be sound insulting to the Scarlets, because I think number of things happened here, in my opinion. You can tell me yours in a sec. Obviously, I think Scarlets were shocked, got a rollicking from their coaches at halftime, threw caution to the wind, came out with more energy, aggression, more determination, that it wasn't 60 points here. And, they started to find little gaps in space, and their confidence grew, and suddenly they're chasing the game. The second half was crazy, because I think and I'll just take you through the tries quickly. So in 45 minutes, Fafita scores the try. It looks soft. And I'm sure Munster can analyse all these. I'm sure the Scarlets can analyse the Munster tries as well. And I thought a couple of the Munster tries, even though the execution was good in the first half, they were soft. Could have been prevented with better defence. So Fafita scores, makes the score 35-14 on 45 minutes. 4 minutes later, Gavin Coombs, Munster go up the field, Gavin Coombs scores. You think, right, okay, that's just going to temper that expectation a little bit. It's 42-14 now. Then Calla Mafoni scores on 53 minutes when Munster tried to run the ball out from close to their own line off a scrum. Patrick Campbell gets caught, turnover, Calla Mafoni picks it up, scores 42-21. Then you have the Sam Lucy try, the second row on 60 minutes, 42-28. It's now getting a little bit sevens rugby style stuff. And then Munster responded 64 minutes. Jack Crowley, lovely little kind of break between two defenders, offloads to Shane Daly and Shane Daly to Calvin Nash under the post. Again, you get a sense, okay, that's it. The madness is over now. Munster are going to maybe kick on here. 49-28. Then in 70 minutes, Gareth Davies try. Really poor defence. I think it was really, really poor defence. Now, Shane Daly scored a try in the first half when there was 3 Munster attackers on one side, and there was about 5 Scarlets defenders, and he just went straight through a gap. Similarities here where Munster had they had enough of defenders and they just give a massive gap and hole. The open side for the Scarlets just piled through. Davies, yeah, very good player actually. Dan Davis, he went straight through, offloaded to Gareth Davies, scored. And then on 76 minutes, another try. Tom Rogers scores a try, 49-42. I didn't think Scarlets were going to win the game at that stage, but I thought they could get a draw here. They could actually just mess the whole thing up. I think it was like even the timelines of those with Munster scoring 2 tries there, but conceding 5 tries there in that second half would have been really disappointing for them. Why did it happen? Was it all down to bad defence? Was it attitude? Was it them switching off? Was the Scarlets being very good?
I think there's loads of elements of that. I think they'll be very fuming with that second half performance. I think Dennis Leamy definitely will. I think Munster have, when things weren't working in attack, Munster's defence was really good, and their ability to rush up the line, their ability to put pressure, their ability to force attacks back into where they're strong, by closing out the outside. And I think it's a combination of things. I think it's a combination of Scarlets showing up mentally for that second half. Munster probably thinking at the back of their minds that they're on holidays now for a week, and maybe, I don't know, I do think there was lots of systematic errors in terms of, like you say, for Gareth Davies, bodies are there, it's just like nobody's talking, so nobody's actually saying I have whoever, and I think that once people retreat back into themselves and stay silent, then it's a lottery in terms of the defensive stuff. When you're full of energy and full of chat and full of communication, and it's actually proper, and it's a one-on-one tackle and it's missed, then more often than not, because you're very aware that you're not making that tackle, you're almost kind of like either side of that tackle will be still kind of, in there to help or whatever. But it's when there's silence, and I'd imagine for lots of that second half, it seemed like there was very little communication.
Okay, I'll be the devil's advocate here and say, well, we've seen a little bit of this. If you go back to round 13 against Benetton, Munster conceded 30 points.
Yeah. Similar
type scores, particularly early on. Were they 14 points down early on?
Yeah.
They certainly conceded 2 really soft tries, I would say. Is this a little bit of a worry going forward? If Munster get to a position where they've turned their season around, after a really difficult start, they're playing really good rugby, and they get into knockout stages, potentially, we're not getting ahead of ourselves here, they have a chance. Will this come back to bite them and just knock them straight out in the quarterfinal against a better team? Because I think there's a little bit of a pattern here, and I don't think it's a situation where people are just bad tacklers, one-on-one tacklers. I think they're making bad decisions as defenders, and there was a really, as I said, both sides had them the other night, because some of Munster's tries, I think Scarlets defended really poorly, even though Munster stretched them a lot. But Calvin Nash's try in the first half, where the prop leaves the kind of pillar at the side of the ruck, you'd have to say poor. The one Shane Daly scored, the second one, poor. He took a ball, a frontline runner. There was 5 defenders against 3 Munster attackers. But Munster had a few in that second half that I would worry that they need to sort this out quickly, because their attack has been superb, and everybody can see that, and they're a really, really good team to watch. And maybe it's a good thing this has happened the other night. It might be a real energizer because I think by and large, most parts of the season, their defence has been pretty good, and it's clawed them back into a situation where they're now in a good position in the league. But I'm just thinking, if you look at Benetton and this game,
do you think that there's a part of that? I don't know. I'm just asking, thinking out loud now that you're talking about it. Part of that are both of those teams are down the table, expected to win. You know what I mean, in terms of that expectation, or that you know you're probably going to win. Let's call a spade, and it subconsciously, might not be consciously. Whereas when they go up against the likes of the Leinsters, the Toulouse, the Northamptons, their defense was incredible, and they like that away trip in Northampton especially. So is it a case that they're like almost like if you score one, we'll score two? I don't know, but I'm just
it shouldn't be, but I think
maybe,
that,
I don't know.
I do think that they need to sort this out quickly, and they've 3 weeks now before they play Glasgow. Glasgow more than likely will come with all their internationals. Munster will have a few back for sure, but that's going to be a really, really difficult game. And it's a game that we've highlighted for so long that, you know, Munster win this, they go ahead of Glasgow in the table. But I think this is an area that they really need to focus on the next few weeks. And I'm sure Dennis Dennis Leamy will be working on this. He'll review the videos, he'll talk to guys individually. It's something they got to fix. They need to become, if teams beat you on the outside, and you know this from a coach, sometimes you got to say, well, fair enough. But if they're going through you, which that was a little bit of a worry for me the other night, it's not a huge thing. I think it's a psychological thing as well. So, in other words, you're in a very good position at half time. How do you approach that second half? Maybe be a bit more pragmatic, maybe play for a little bit more territory, hold on to the ball, protect things a little bit better, control the tempo, and stop the inevitable kind of surge that you're going to get against the team that are losing by a big score. So it's just something to be mindful of, I think. And
can I also say as well, a big thing for me was Munster's inability to deal with the 2 second rows. Two Tongans, big athletes, very rangy, incredible over the ball, on the ball. And I just felt like Munster really struggled to tie them in. And I thought in the second half, they came to the fore a huge amount.
To be fair, they're very good players. And like I said, I was doing the commentary, and I know they're very good players. They're very physical. Fafita, he's 11 caps for maybe 11, 12 caps for New Zealand and 3 for Tonga now. Sam Lucy has, a Tongan international, played Super Rugby, and Kalamafoni is another Tongan international, very powerful. So that kind of middle five for them, Josh McLeod and Dan Davies, good players as well. They're experienced. So I think they kind of, out-muscle Munster at the breakdown a few times in that second half, and were really physical. But we give a lot of credit, and we have to give them credit for the first half. Second half needs to be looked at, but overall, it was a positive result. It was a great scenario, a great game to watch. But both defensive coaches, I'd say, and from the Scarlets side and from Munster side, would be pulling their hair out. We'll move on, Niamh, because we could keep going. Just before we do, 27 defenders beaten, which that indicates what you're saying about the attack, the evasion, the movement. 9 clean breaks from both sides. Munster had 17 offloads again. So their numbers are high, and that shows the confidence in attack. We want to see a little bit more confidence in defence, particularly if you're winning the game. And look, they've shown it, and I've said I don't want to take away from the way they've defended, because you've said it as well. They have defended very well in a lot of big games, kind of from that South African game onwards. This run of 13 games where they've won 10 and lost 3, which is a really impressive run. The 3 they've lost are 1 to Leinster, twice to Toulouse. So it's been a very, very good results right. Star of the week, who are you picking?
I know we try and pick one, but I felt it was really difficult this weekend. I thought the 2 wingers were exceptional in what they've really come to the fore this season. They've, you know what I mean? When you're missing athletes the caliber of Keith Earls and Andrew Conway, you always kind of think that you might be under pressure. Calvin Nash and Shane Daly have been brilliant. Shane Daly, especially for me, I think within the first 20 minutes, I think he had something like 8 or 9 touches. His work rate, his hunger to get off his wing, his ability to get around the park. Defensively, I think he's really strong. He's really good at the high ball, and And obviously Calvin Nash has kind of turned into this poacher-esque goal scorer where he just continuously racking up the tries. And so I thought they were really, really good, both of them.
Okay, so we're giving a joint award again this week. The stars of the week are the two Munster wingers, Calvin Nash and Shane Daly. It's a big honour to win this now, so they'll
stars are in the post.
split the award. But I agree, both have taken their opportunities. Their game has improved dramatically, and that's probably, it's wonderful to see. And it's down to it's down to the attack coach and the way they're playing, the confidence these players are given. And it was highlighted in Calvin Nash's try in the second half, where Crowley makes that little break, goes through two defenders, but Shane Daly is there on his shoulder, coming in off his wing, and then Calvin Nash is in off his wing, and he scores. So we didn't see that stuff in the last number of years, and it's brilliant to see the wingers, those two wingers, getting their hands on the ball and having more involvements. So well done to them. You could have picked several players in that first half. I thought Gavin Coombs was very good. Even in the second half, I thought he was I liked the fact that he was working hard, still putting in a lot of tackles, impact tackles as well. John Hodnett had a huge amount of work as well. Paddy Patterson for me was brilliant again. But look, I think if you look at all the Munster players, you could be picking any amount of them in that first half, and then the second half, I think the performance dipped a little bit. But if we were doing an Andy Farley watching piece, I think we would probably pick Shane Daly and Calvin Nash as well. Both of them were involved in that Emerging Ireland tour, and I'm sure they're on the Irish selectors' radars, Mike Cass. So Munster don't play for 3 weeks now. Next time is on the 25th of March against Glasgow, if I'm correct. I'm just going to check the... Sorry, one sec. It's the 25th of March. So the next couple of weeks, Niamh, just before when we leave Munster, we'll just talk about the Irish game in a second. Is that a good thing that they have a bit of a break now again? Re-energized, possibly... Thomas Ahern, Mike Haley, Edwin Adogbo could be back in that period, which would be a big boost from, wouldn't it?
Yeah, huge. I think they're off this week, as far as I know. Well, the fit players, I'm not sure about the rehabbers, but they're off this week, so they'll get some downtime and they'll start to ramp it back up, because it's really about once they come back in for that Glasgow game, there's a huge big block left there, and they're still in with chances of being thereabouts for both competitions. So I'd imagine they'll take this and definitely use it as downtime, and then ramp it back up again after next week.
Yeah, it's on 25th of March at 5:15 in Thomond Park. Then they go to South Africa the week after, and then if they win in South Africa against the Sharks, they would be probably away in Toulouse, and then back to South Africa for Stormers and Sharks again. So it's could be a really, really busy. Hopefully, it's a busy 5 weeks on the trot. But obviously, the importance of that Glasgow game, I think, and you can only take one game at a time. But credit to them the way they've played and the results they've got since that South African game in November. I keep highlighting that block, but it's been an incredibly positive one. And they're a very good side to watch now. And I think I love the fact that they're confident, and their attack has improved so much. I think we need to put a bit of pressure on them, pushing on to the next level now psychologically as well, because this is a mental thing as well for them. And I know they're excited and animated about where they are at the moment, which is good to see. But anyway, busier times ahead in the next few weeks. Just finally, Scotland v Ireland on Sunday. This is kind of the potential banana skin. Credit to Scotland, they've been really good. Even the last day away in France, I think they asked so many questions of France. Started the Six Nations brilliantly, beating England and Twickenham. Record margin victory in Murrayfield in round 2 against Wales, and then went to France, and obviously the sending off early on and probably the concession of points during that time cost them the game, but they could have won that game in France. I'm sure they'll be looking forward to Ireland coming to Murrayfield on Sunday. And, Ireland have answered a lot of questions. And I think the one question I was thinking before the Six Nations was psychologically, how are they going to deal with the pressure and some of the similarities of 2019 season? Of being ranked number one team in the world and on the back of a great season last year, can they deal with that pressure? This is another big situation for this Irish team on Sunday. Can they handle it?
Yeah, I think they wear that number one side in the world really well. I think that they just think about themselves and how they plan and get better, as opposed to the bigger picture and what people are saying. I do think that they can. I think I expect Ireland to win at Murrayfield on the weekend. I think it's going to be a really, really good game, but I do expect them. I think it'll be Scotland been really, really good from an attack point of view. They've been, like, obviously Finn Russell's been really good, but there has to be some form of payback when Irish players are at home for a few days and he's traipsing over to France, play for Racing and come back. That's like 5 or 6 weeks on the bounce now that he's been playing. And while some players love that momentum, I do think maybe
because he played for Racing on Sunday night at 9:00 against Toulouse.
Played the previous down week as well. So look, I think
is he the key for Scotland?
No, I think the centres are. I think they've been absolutely
Tupelotu
exceptional.
and Hugh Jones.
Hugh Jones. Hugh Jones has been one of my favourite players for the last 3 or 4 years. I think he's been so underrated, and to see him playing the way he is now, I think that Ireland really need Gary Ringrose back. Really do. And if he's not, I think we'd have to catapult Henshaw straight in there, I feel, because I just think that they're playing so well, and Russell is putting them into space there so well, right flat in the line as well. It's very difficult to defend. You need somebody that knows what they're doing out there, and I think that's huge for Ireland. I think Grant Gilchrist been suspended for Scotland is a big thing for them. I think he gives them a lot of oomph in their pack and a lot of physicality. I know the Greys will probably come back in there, Johnny and Richie, but I just do think that Grant Gilchrist is a bit of a James Ryan-esque type of a player where he's just very fit, he's physical. So Ireland, I do think Ireland are going to win this.
So well, it's good. It's a tough one. I just think it's a tough one, but it's one that I think they'll be looking forward to. It'll be incredible. Obviously, they won't want to look ahead and talk about any sort of potential Grand Slam situation the week after against England. But how good is it for Andy Farrell to be in a position potentially, and we think this is going to happen, that you'll be welcoming back Robbie Henshaw, Jamison Gibson-Park, Tyke Furlong, Gary Ringrose, Johnny Sexton, Peter O'Mahony. Obviously, Peter O'Mahony, we're expecting he will probably go straight back into the back row, but the others have been out injured. So Henshaw, Gibson-Park, Furlong, Ringrose, Sexton. How much of a boost? You're a coach. What will Andy Farrell be feeling? And I know he's spoken about the fact that he's been missing players throughout this championship, and he's had to, give other people opportunities, and they've answered that call. But this is a huge boost for Ireland on the run in these last 2 games. Yeah,
all those players only add value. They don't take anything away. And I think, Sexton, obviously huge for me. I'm still not 100% convinced that Ross Byrne is, and is that clear number 2, to be honest. But I just think Johnny's, he's Ireland's best player, arguably. I think he's incredible at what he does. And also Ringrose, I think we get them back in. Tyke Furlong, that one is just so, it is literally, timing could not have been better because of Finlay Beelam's injury, unfortunately. That's brilliant if he gets back in. You know what I mean? And if you can decide then whether you start or bring him off the bench, but I just think that's a huge plus for them as well. So Yeah, I think Andy Farrell. That's actually, do you know what it does though? It gives him a huge headache because, as you said, players that have played for the first 3 games have played really, really well. Do you reward for him? Do you reward the money in the bank? Certain players has to be money in the bank. Other players, you've got a reward for him, and it's a very individual thing. So that's and it'll be tough, I suppose, for the selection.
Who do you play in the centre if Robbie Henshaw, Gary Ringrose, Bundy Aki are available? Stuart McCluskey, started there in the start of the championship, did really well. So who do you play in the centres? I know
12.
I know you're going to say, I should just ask 12 because I know you're going to say Gary Ringrose goes straight back in. That's pretty obvious. But who do you play with him at 12?
I think it's McCluskey.
It's McCluskey. You don't put Robbie Henshaw straight back in. You don't think,
he's been out for a very long time. I think that's a huge big question to a centre partnership that are on fire at the moment. I think
it's a fair argument. McCluskey's played really well. Obviously, the McCluskey-Bundy-Aki situation didn't have the same effect and caused some problems in Italy because, with respect to Bundy-Aki, he's not a 13. I think Robbie Henshaw can play there more comfortably and has done before. So any other changes in the side? Ian Henderson played for Tadhg Beirne in that Italian game. Ryan Baird came off the bench, had a big impact. Would you go with Ian Henderson and start Ryan Baird? Would you make any change there? Or would you still stick? I still think, I think this might come against Ryan Baird, the impact off the bench.
Maybe, but I wanted him to start. I still do. I think he's having an unbelievable season, and I think we've got to reward that form. So I would go with Ryan Baird, James Ryan. I said for the Italy game, and it's no disrespect to Ian Henderson, none whatsoever. I'm just a huge Ryan Baird fan in terms of his ability to play that game, the type of game that Ireland play and Leinster play. I just think he's just a freak of nature in terms of his athleticism and his ability to get his hands free. And I think that going into those tight situations, Ireland will need that. But then you've hit the nail on the head. That's something that I'm learning as a coach. Impacts off the bench is huge. And if you know what I mean, if you're up by a score or down by a score with 20, 30 minutes to go and you just bring somebody like him off the bench, what do you get? You get a huge amount of energy. So it's tough. It's a tough one.
It's a bit of a contradiction if you don't play Robbie Henshaw and you play Tadhg Furlong, because Tadhg Furlong hasn't played since November himself. So anyway, horses for courses, and some of these are just a little bit of intuition on what the coaches are seeing and how the players train as well. But I think it's a huge boost to have them back within the group. I think they'll be very mindful of a surge in energy and a change. Scotland have been playing really well and they deserve credit. I think they're a different side. Ireland have won the last 7 games against Scotland, 6 in the Six Nations and 1 obviously at the World Cup in Japan, in Tokyo, which is it's a tough one probably to take from a Scottish point of view, but I think they're a really, really dangerous proposition this time. They're probably more dangerous than I've seen them in a while. That game in 2017 was the last time, 6 years ago in Murrayfield, where Scotland won 27-22. They came out, I think Stuart Hogg scored early. Scotland came out like a steam train right at the start of that game. That was the famous one where the bus was late and Joe Schmidt wasn't happy about that. Ireland were late getting to the stadium. But Ireland's success against Scotland has been very, very good in recent years. But I think this one's going to be a difficult one. It's you're splitting hairs here, but look, hopefully Ireland can get a result. I think they'll be very mindful of this Scottish side at the moment. You mentioned Finn Russell earlier. I think, if you can try and put a bit of pressure on Finn Russell, if he gets time and space and gets quality possession, I think he can hurt any team. 2 good centres as well, and their pack has become much more abrasive and powerful. So it's a tough task. Well, good luck to them anyway. Hopefully we can get an Irish win. Also, the under-20s are in Scotland as well. They're going on a similar kind of journey to the senior team. at the weekend, and a lot of good young players there. So that's it. We're away to Bournemouth at 12:30 on Saturday, so I hope we don't do the same scenarios we've done a few times this year when we've got a good win, gone and lost the week after. And you're home to Forest, you'd be fine anyway. Tottenham should be fine against Forest. What do you think?
No comment.
No comment. Okay. Well, that's it. Good luck for the week and the weekend as well, Niamh. I know you're back in camp. That's it for episode 61 of the Red 78. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back next week to analyse the Irish game and look forward to see if what Munster are up to. They'll be back training next week.
The Red 78 with Quinlan and Niamh Briggs. Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
I'd like to think I know a lot.